Good evening, everyone. It is me again. So, if you remember, in my previous mini-series, after doing Ben 10 aliens, I was going to do Ben 10 villains. Because, as I've said before, I love me some Ben 10. So, same as last time, this is going to be based on power and combat ability. But I'm also adding in some resources. Because a lot of these characters have a lot of armies and a lot of, men, a lot of bodies to throw at people. And I think that should constitute power in this case. Because Ben's aliens, they were just Ben. Ben has allies, but that shouldn't affect the ranking of his individual aliens. But it will count for these guys because they are individual. Don't know all these guys' names. I've skimmed through this a little bit. There are several people I don't know a whole lot about because I haven't seen all of Omniverse. And other characters whose names I just straight up don't know or don't remember. Starting with this guy, whose name I don't remember. But I do know he's like one of the leaders of the Incursion Empire because there were like 3 or something. Either that or it was just this guy multiple times. But I'm pretty sure I've seen one that looked different. Anyway, the Incursions, from what I know, are pretty stacked in the Ben 10 universe. They're basically the Frieza Force, except you don't get to see any of their feats. Which honestly is kind of like the Frieza Force, actually. But going off what's been said about them and the fact that they have technology that can just casually wipe out dwarf planets, and it's implied that it could do even greater damage to an Earth-sized planet at higher power, or maybe higher focus or something like that, considering they have that technology to do that casually, which isn't that common in the Ben 10 universe, but not that uncommon either. I would say this dude, simply for commanding the Incursion Empire, deserves A tier. That kind of power is nothing to scoff at the Ben 10 universe. And that's why this girl, whose name I also don't remember, I'm sorry, also gets A tier for the same reasons. Now, I've forgotten this guy's name too, but I know who he is. I'll be right back. I'm kind of embarrassed I had to look it up. I knew the character. His name is Phil. I know he comes back in Omniverse, and he has some kind of, mutation thing that goes on. But all things considered, I don't think he could be any higher than C tier. And honestly, without knowledge I have about what he does in Omniverse, which again is very, very small, I would put him in D tier. But surviving the Null Void for, honest to God, probably over a decade, that's an accomplishment, and a very big one at that. And also, he's a plumber who worked alongside Max. So, yeah, he's definitely pretty decorated, but in Ben 10 power scaling, he's really not that great. And here's our first S tier. Yeah, so Albedo can use literally every single transformation that Ben can use, but supposedly also has some level of Galvan intelligence on top of them. Because we see that when he uses transformations, he tends to still have that little, dialect and speaking pattern that he has as a Galvan, and as his pseudo-human form. So, he might honestly be stronger than Ben, it's just that he's more arrogant than Ben because of his intelligence, and because he's Albedo. But if Albedo could get over that ego and focus entirely on just concentrating and using his powers effectively, with a slight bit of Galvan intelligence added onto all his transformations, obviously not full Galvan intelligence, I'm not saying that his wrath is as smart as gray matter, I'm just saying that they're above average intelligence for the species because they seem to have some Galvan intelligence. He would probably wipe the floor with Ben without any ultimate transformations, without any pseudo-boosted Taku Star thing. Okay, let's move on. 7-7. Is 6-6 on here? Hold on, let me see. He is. Okay, this dude is getting C tier. I only remember 2 times we saw him, and he got absolutely whooped both times. The dude got barely touched by swamp fire, his mask broke, and he ran away. And then he got absolutely owned by Max. And yeah, Max is a very skilled fighter. But This dude is a joke compared to 6-6. Alright, Siphon. See, if we were going with General Siphon, I would give Siphon A tier or S tier because they have connections with Albedo, technically. Siphon supposedly had contact with Agrigor at one point. I believe was mentioned in Cosmic Destruction. He tried to reach out to him, but Agrigor didn't want anything to do with him. And, you know, honestly, connections with Vilgax, Albedo, and somewhat Agrigor, I would give him those tiers, but because he no longer has those connections in the Omniverse, I'll give him B tier because he is still kind of accomplished and intelligent in some ways, and if we go off of video games, he can handle himself in a fight decently thanks to his technology, but I'm not giving him any higher than that. Alright, next is, I believe his name is Adwaja, and he's the first don't know category. I haven't seen him fight, but I know he supposedly has a lot of magical stuff, but I can't rank a character that I know almost nothing about. Okay, so real quick, let me check something, and alright, no, so there's only one Kevin on here. Sorry if my taskbar keeps popping up, I'm sorry. But, so Kevin has energy absorption. He can absorb energy. He can absorb matter. For some reason, we never see him combine those two abilities, even though that seems like that would be very interesting. And he can absorb genetics. Again, why does he not mix any of these powers? But Kevin is stacked. And I know there's this whole thing about, oh, Osmosians can't absorb DNA without starting to lose control, which is understandable, but there's really no excuse for Kevin to not combine his energy powers and his matter powers. Like, imagine if he made some giant sickle or hammer out of Taintonite and surrounded it with mana or just electricity. That would be dope, and I don't think we ever see him do that. But still, just his ability to combine the powers of aliens together, yes, 1/10 the power of aliens together, but keep in mind, with Benton fusions, you have a thing where when you combine two aliens, their powers are halved. Kevin technically doesn't have that. It's shown that when Osmosians absorb, they only get 1/10, but when they have multiple together, that 1/10 isn't diluted at all. So in other words, if you have 9 other aliens stacked on top of your Osmosian, they're not going to be super diluted and you have pretty much nothing. No, you're still going to be a whole 10th, in a sense. You get me? So, just for the fact that he can make, you know, I forgot the word, but fusions that are not hindered by being fusions would get him would probably get him A tier alone. But with all the things that Kevin can do and all the things we've seen him do, he's definitely an S tier. This guy, I don't know anything about him. And that's coming up for the next 3, actually, because I haven't seen these guys in action. Well, I've seen this girl in action, but I don't. It was in one episode, and it was the one where Albedo came back and got the Ultimatrix knockoff, whatever thing. Alright, Dagon. Okay, so, y'all know Webig, the Q-Star, star level, you know, star level being. Second strongest alien of Ben's arsenal, bar none. Except, maybe Gravitac and Clockwork. Dagon beat Ultimate Webig, and as a general rule in Ben 10, despite what scaling states and going by the narrative, Ultimates are supposedly more powerful than their base form. So even though we know absolutely nothing about Ultimate Webig, and I wish Albedo brought him back at least, the fact that Ultimate Dagon was able to beat a Q-Star, it all puts him in S tier. The fact that he beat an evolved Q-Star makes him a definite S tier. And again, just like in the last list, the tiers aren't ranked within themselves. The last person in S is not weaker than the first person in S. I just don't rank them that way. Okay, again, referring to the other list, Maltruant. Maltruant is the reason I put Clockwork so high in that list, because we've seen what Maltruant can do, and how powerful Chronokinesis is. That's hard to say. Chronokinesis is. But Maltruant was able to handle Atomic X, and yes, Crow the Artist and the Ink Tank went into that whole thing about Atomic X in one of their more recent videos, or maybe late by now. I think it's probably like a month or so, probably a couple weeks. But the fact that Maltruant was able to handle someone of Atomic's level at all would make him incredibly powerful. But, again, Maltruant has chronokinesis, and that's one of the more powerful abilities in the context of Ben 10. But from what we have seen, Maltruant has a pretty devastating power behind him. Alright, next, Agrigor. Just had to check, yep, General Agrigor. Because he's Osmosian, and he has the smarts to lead a small empire and make a machine that lets him absorb the full DNA of all creatures, and successfully deduced which creatures would give him pretty much ultimate power that would almost guarantee he'd be able to get to the, the Forge of Creation or whatever it was called, get the Map of Infinity and all that, and absorb a young Celestial Sapient, and find out about Celestial Sapients at all. He's Kevin, but better. And we actually see him use energy manipulation, but we don't see him use matter manipulation. Supposedly, he doesn't know how to use it, which is fair. Alright, this guy, Dr. Psychobos, getting back to terrible villains who aren't that strong. I'm honestly going to give him F tier. I've only seen one scene from him, and it was him getting owned. Or one scene from him in combat. He got owned by, I think, Rook just clamping his shell thing down on him. And honestly, how powerful can he be? Brainstorm isn't even that strong. Alright, Captain Nemesis. He's going to be the first. Actually, I think I'll give him C tier, given that I have Phil and this bozo here. His power is... it exists. He's never shown contending with Ben that much. Like, yeah, he was able to contend with Humonosaur with 2 arms, and considering how strong Humonosaur is, contending with half his brute strength is still very substantial. I'm sorry if I went quiet for a second there. I leaned back because I forgot I have to be close to my computer for you guys to pick me up clearly, because I don't have a microphone. But Nemesis is not that good. Like, he could certainly whoop pretty much everyone in C tier, probably, if he was going all out and not getting cocky. And definitely Dr. Psychobos, maybe even Siphon. But he has almost nothing to go off of in terms of feats. Alright, so this guy, yeah, this guy's just general hybrid, I guess, because there's no other hybrid on here. Gotta give hybrid S tier. Hybrids beat the Galvans. You know how hard that is to do? Malware would make you think not very hard, but we'll get to him in the next video because I'm almost out of time. But the hybrid were essentially going to, I guess, purify all the lesser species across the universe. And to be honest, I think they could have. I mean, if they were able to, overwhelm the Galvans, and the fact that we see Humongosaur struggles against them, and pretty much all of the Alien Force playlist struggles against them. They're average members. I think they honestly could have pulled it off. If they hadn't, changed their ways and all that. So, yeah, Hybrid are definitely S tier. Plus, they have, xenocytes and all that. They could literally turn people into mindless servants. But anyway, out of time for this one. I think this one should be maybe only 2 parts. This tier list is significantly smaller than the last one. So, I'll see you guys in part 2 where we'll finish this off. I don't know where I'm going to go from this tier list, but we'll see.